just to remind people to thank people for their resistance in their daily lives, and to know that acknowledging how ridiculous the system that we live in is a start, and to know that we can sustain our life and that we don't have to be attached to the system, and that every single day that we have to challenge that, and we have to challenge our colonization.
Hi, I'm Sophie, and I'm nervous. I'm a single mom of 2 kids, and I'm an anarchist. And I'm challenged constantly with how to be an anarchist and a mom at the same time. It's really difficult to reject all authority and be an authority figure at the same time. Being a parent is something that is really not explainable. If you haven't been a parent, then there's things that you'll never know about it until you are. And if you're never going to be a parent, then there's definitely things you're not going to know about it. It's really complicated. There's constant challenges with raising kids. They have their own personalities, their own needs and desires, and it's really important to try and meet them and respect them. But it's also not always possible in this world that we live in today. I had a big speech I was going to write, but my kids were sick today, so I didn't have time. I have a bunch of points that I kind of want to make, and hopefully I'll get to all of them. I haven't been a single mom for very long, and since becoming a single woman, I've been presented with a whole bunch of taboos that I didn't really recognize until seeing them and living them, and that there's a lot of respect given to men in this culture that women are forced to earn or not get at all. Even if we try and earn it, oftentimes we're not given respect. So it's really hard to be standing alone in this culture and have, people expect you to have a man alongside you for them to talk to, so they don't have to talk to a woman, or you're supposed to be represented by a man at all times. And to not be in a situation where that's my life has been really educational. It's actually pretty empowering. It's nice to see that I'm not passing on that to my kids, because I have a son and a daughter. I want both of them to realize that women are strong, and that a lot of the work, most of the work in the world, I would say, is done by women, and we're not given credit for it, we're not given respect for it. And to raise kids that aren't sexist in this culture is about impossible, but is something really worth striving for. And I feel like being a single mom and being empowered to do that is teaching my kids that women are strong, noble creatures, and deserve a lot of respect. So that's good. In this culture, women are really taught that we're not supposed to have needs, we're not supposed to have wants, we're not supposed to pay attention to what we want to do in this life. We're supposed to take orders, we're supposed to cook for people, clean for people, be beautiful. We're not really given a whole lot other than that, unless we strive out and find it. And that's what it feels like is needed and is happening a lot. It's wonderful to see strong, empowered women doing all sorts of crazy things that patriarchy says they're not supposed to. One thing that I'm facing being a single mom is poverty. It's a big oppressor. That's not only towards women, that's most people that are poor, most single parents that are poor are women, but there's a lot of single men that are poor too, and that's a huge oppressor. It's really hard to let go of the anxiety about rent and long enough to throw a little anarchy into my life, but I try to do it. I can't really see ever not being poor. I'd hate to be rich. That'd be such a big drag on my pride. But that's something that society really has on us. If we're poor, then we're not given any time to consider where we want our life to go, how we're going to live it in a better way. I want to say that being a parent is amazing. I'm totally in love with my kids, and getting to know somebody from before they're born until now I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old is really wonderful, and to know that I'm the only person that's known them in that way is amazing. I know there's a lot of people that aren't going to have kids, and that's respectable, but it's important for people that don't have kids to realize all the work that goes into parenting and to pay attention to that. If people that didn't have kids were more into helping people that do have kids, then we might have a little bit more sharing of the burden, and we might have single parents that actually have time to do something else besides dishes, laundry, wiping noses, taking kids all over the place, shopping. There's so much that's involved in being a mom. It's really overwhelming sometimes. There's a big mind frame, I think, that has been passed down to us through the generations that kids are a burden, that there isn't a whole lot of respect towards people that deal with kids, that is sort of given the last, the person that can't deal with anything else is given the kids to deal with. And that's bullshit. People need to start respecting kids. They're just as much our community as we are. And they need to be treated with respect. They need to be honored. They need to be empowered from now. I think that too often people are disregarding kids now and waiting until they're 18 to hear what they have to say. That's not going to work. Once they're 18, they're not going to want to talk to you anymore if you haven't heard them until now. So it's important to hear what kids need. They have a perspective that we don't have anymore, that we're never going to have. They aren't bogged down by bills and by police. They're pretty fresh, new, exciting people, and what they have to say is really important, and with every single one of them, it's really unique. So if people took more time to get to know kids, I think that their lives would be enriched by it. I really enjoy the perspective I get from being a mother. Everything's heavier, it feels like. I can't just do things without really putting much thought into them. I have to explain myself to a 3-year-old. How do you explain yourself to a 3-year-old if you want to go smash bank windows? How do you explain factories to a 3-year-old? Everything is more important, it seems. And I'm not allowed to be a pessimist. I can't be raising kids into a society that I feel is completely doomed. So I have to be optimistic about where the world's headed, which is good. I think it forces me to learn how to survive. I don't feel like there's an option for me not to survive, because I'm going to be taking care of kids at least for the next 15 years. So I need to know how to grow my own food. I need to know how to make do if the water suddenly turns off. I need to know how to purify water. I need to know how to make community, how to communicate with people in ways that they understand where I'm coming from and don't feel threatened. I think a lot of those things are things that people that don't have kids don't necessarily have to look into as deeply. Some of you do, and that's wonderful, and some don't, and that's your choice. But being a parent really forces me to analyze what my existence takes and to see what I need to learn in order to be able to support myself. Which kind of brings me to another thing is, we haven't been passed down all that much that's worth passing on. It's pretty intense when you think about the state of the world today and how generation after generation the lessons have been crap for the most part. And I can't pass that on to my kids. So I need to feel like I'm creating a culture somewhat to pass on to them. Creating values. Not to say that my parents did a bad job or anything, but kind of from scratch, kind of coming up with stuff that I didn't get passed down so that they're going to have something worthwhile to pass on to the next generation. Hopefully I'm not doing too bad of a job with that. One thing that's kind of a shame about anarchist parenting is it feels really isolating. both from anarchists, because most of them don't have kids, and it's not necessarily a priority for a lot of anarchists to be hanging around with kids. I know it slows people down, can't really take them to big riots or anything, and it's isolating from other parents, because there's not many parents that want to have anarchistic, rebellious, little authority-hating kids running around their house tearing things up. So it's isolating on both senses of being an anarchist and a parent. And it's isolating for my kids too. I feel kind of like I keep them in a bubble because I don't want them to be exposed to consumeristic values all that much. I don't want to explain to them who Pokemon is, or why the Power Rangers are constantly kicking the shit out of each other and saying, "Don't be violent, kids." There's a lot of things that I know I'm eventually going to have to explain, but until I get to that point, I'm kind of holding off on it. It's really hard to raise kids in a racist, sexist patriarchy and not feel like I want them to stay inside all the time. So, since there's no glass bubbles, I'm just trying to explain things a lot. It's hard to want to feel like I'm a minimalist. I don't want to put much money into the system, but I need to provide a stable space for my kids. So that's a compromise that takes a toll, and it's something that I know a lot of people, both people who are parents and aren't, have to deal with that. It's rather trying to go to work and then give money to a landlord, but I'm sure all of you know about that. I think that's about it. Thanks.